Hello everybody, and welcome back to episode 9 of Brandon's Visual Effects Bonanza. It's been a minute. Sorry about that. I've been moving. Life has been crazy, but I'm back in business here. The audio quality is probably going to be a little different here. I'm using my headset mic. I haven't got my other equipment set up yet, but bear with me. Today we're going to be taking a look at polar coordinates and making this super cool Hyperspace FTL drive thing. So let's jump into the project and get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to want to do is hop in your modeling software of choice. I use Maya. If you use Blender or whatever, more power to you. I just don't, I'm not familiar with many other ones. I'm going to create a plane. It's super easy here in Maya, and it's nice because the one's already tessellated a little bit. It's got some extra density, which is what I want, but not too much. We'll see later if I need to add any more. When I create a mesh in Maya, I know generally that I need it to be a little bit bigger than the grid to be like a reasonable size in Unity, because if it's all the way down here, it's going to be really small in Unity, so I just go a little bit bigger. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to vertex mode, so I can pick a vertex. I'm already in soft selection here, but if I press B, it takes it out. So we want to be in soft selection. So press B in Maya, at least. I'm not sure what this would be in your software. Sorry. And in Maya, if you hold B and click, then you can adjust your selection size. And what this does is allows us to have a more intense point in the middle to pull from, and these on the side are less intense. So I want to bring up my center quite a bit. And it doesn't have to go that much, because if you see, if I get out of, there we go. Since my pivot is at the bottom, and if your pivot's not at the bottom, if it moved up or whatever, you can press insert in Maya, and this allows you to move your pivot. I like to have mine right there at the bottom, because now when we scale this mesh inside of Unity, the pivot's going to be here at the bottom. We can give ourselves some extra depth here, which is what we're going to want. So this seems about right. I will try it out like this. Might need to bring these curved edges down, but we'll see. We'll try it out. Let's rename it to deformed plane. Something like that works fine for me. Let's double check the UVs and make sure, yep, they're just a square. So this center point of the UVs is this center point up here. You can actually check that in Maya if you turn off soft selection, click that, you'll see that point is highlighted as well. So, and they're not super stretched. We don't mind if they're a little stretched because we kind of want a stretching effect. That's the fun part about VFX, is you can have wacky UVs that are all stretched and crazy because it works for VFX. Okay, so let's exit that. Select our mesh. Do the thing you always do, freeze transformations. Delete all by type, non-deformer history. This just says, hey, nothing else has ever happened. This is how the mesh is supposed to be. Going to export that to my documents, deformed plane, and let's head into Unity. I already have a folder created for this. I was messing around just making sure I had the idea of what's going on before I started recording. So right click, import, just make a new folder called polar coordinates in your project, or if you're downloading it from the Patreon, it will already be there and you can mess around with it. This is some ink-bound stuff. Okay, deformed plane FBX, import, and there it is. And when you import something, you can always, if it's not the size you want right from the get-go, like if I dropped this into my scene and it was like too small compared to my world space, then you can just change the scale factor. I'm sure we've done that before. But maybe not. If you change this to 15 instead of 1, it'll be 15 times bigger. So you can always make the adjustment there if you need to. I just try to get it roughly correct before then. Next thing we want to do is right click, create shader graph, URP, unlit shader graph, and name this polar coordinates, polar chords, whatever you want to do. I already have one because I was testing around earlier, so this would be polar chords 2. Open it up. I got my backup shader for reference in case I forget everything I ever did with this test before I recorded. Alright, so basic stuff. We can allow material override just in case we need to. Probably wouldn't want this to cast shadows. All that good stuff. Okay, so the highlight, the focus of our tutorial today is on the polar coordinates node. This is super useful. I love it. I don't actually get to use it that much, but I'll show you what it does. So if we drop some noise in, let's go ahead and set the scale to like 25. And if we just plug this right in, you'll see we now have more of a circular effect going on. So if we remove that, this bottom is what is shifted to the center. And then it kind of remaps the whole thing to go from the center outwards, grabbing this bottom and making it the center, grabbing the top and making it the outer. So if I grabbed, say, a good old rounded rectangle, and let's scoot it to the bottom with the tiling and offset node. You don't need to do this. I'm just giving you an example here. And we make the width bigger. Now, if I were to plug a polar coordinates node, it would be grabbing that and projecting it from the center. And it gets very interesting. You can get some very cool effects out of this by like decreasing the height. And it's just like you can do a bunch of crazy stuff with this. It's a lot of experimentation. Like now I have a circle. And now if I adjust the height, it adjusts the thickness of the circle. Like just insane stuff. We will need this tiling and offset node, so we will keep that. So plug your polar coordinates into a tiling and offset node. Plug that into your UVs of your noise. So now you'll see, if we were to scroll on the X, it scrolls it outwards or inwards, depending on the direction you're going. And that is very cool, very handy for VFX, especially if you don't want to get into the business of, creating weird UVs to basically do exactly what this is doing. Where it's like I would scroll a straight line down on, we'll say like the top half of a sphere, then it would create like a circle around the top of the sphere as it came down, which is useful in itself. It just depends what your needs are. But you can also do it like this and project it directly in the center of the UVs. So you can have this on a plane and it would look exactly like that. You can adjust the center. I don't know, in case you ever wanted to do like ripples or something, only going outwards. Could do that. I don't need to do that for today. Can change the scale, which I prefer to do this with the tiling of the noise for whatever reason, but that's basically the same thing. Yeah, same stuff here if you were to plug it directly into the tiling and offset like that. So you may notice, and you may be saying, oh my god, look at that seam. Yeah, the seam's terrible with this. Who wants that on their texture? But have no fear, because we are going to fix this. So what we're going to do is grab these copy, Control C, Control V, paste. And what we're going to do, I read an article that showed me how to do this at some point. I'll link it in the description if I can find it. There's a lot of good documentation out there from a lot of other artists, and pretty much everything I know is from other people that I've learned throughout the years. Okay, we need a rotate node. Plug that into this. Switch it to degrees. What this does is it just rotates the UVs of whatever you plugged it into. So I want to rotate this 180 degrees. So now this seam is on top. So what does that do for us? Well, if we grab lerp node, plug the top in there, plug that in there, boy golly, now we can cycle between two seams. But don't worry. What we're going to do is we're going to tell this lerp node only to lerp on this bottom half. So it's going to eliminate our seam. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to grab a UV node. We're going to create a split node. Okay, and this is going to give us a gradient. So if we put a preview node, this just allows you to preview whatever it looks like. We don't want that one. We don't want that one because we want it to go the other direction. So we can go ahead and grab a 1 minus node. And what this says is anything that's plugged into here is the opposite of the original. That's what 1 minus means. You're basically multiplying by -1. Okay, so now we're going to need an add node. And what this allows us to do is move it. Multiply pretty much controls the strength of the white values. Add will kind of let you scoot it along, or like stretch it almost. So we're going to need that. We are going to need a smooth step. I've seen people do it with other nodes. I prefer using smooth step. I just always get better results like that, because now when you adjust this value, the second edge, you can really tighten up that right there, the center. It's where you can smooth it out if you want to, or you can bring it to a really sharp edge. And we'll adjust this as we go. So now if I plug this into the time spot of the lerp node, wow, I pretty much got that spot on the first time. Now there's no seam, but it normally requires some adjusting here. As you can see, if you mess with it, you still get the seam. But I guess I know what I'm doing, and I got it right right away. You want to have a little bit of gradient there to smooth out the blend between the two in the middle. You can kind of see it, like a bit of distortion there in the middle, but it's so not noticeable when you're using it in VFX. But that seam would have been. So now look at that. We have no seam at all. And as you see here, we need to make sure we're using a vector 2 that's connected to both of these. So that's what we'll do next. Let's scoot this stuff back, make some room. I try to keep these things clean for you guys, but I'm a messy worker when it comes to shaders, as you've seen. So let's do offset first. Plug that in there. And now, if you look down here, if we scroll this on the X, wow, look at that. Beautiful. And it gets even cooler when we hook up another vector 2 to the tiling. Because now, as we saw before, we can stretch it, kind of bring it aggressively towards the camera, make it nice and long. And if we adjust the Y on the tiling, it kind of bunches it up more on the sides. I'm not a super technical person, so I do not use technical terms to describe what is going on. I just say it gets more bunched up when you tile it this way. It gets more stretched out towards you when you do it this way. And this is great. This is exactly what we want. And it looks sweet. So we are definitely going to want this to be like moving towards us. So what do? We grab a time node. We multiply time with a value. Let's do a vector 2 so we can... do we want to do a vector 2? Yeah, let's do a vector 2, sure. Multiply time by the vector 2. Now we can remove this vector 2 that was plugged into our offset and plug the result of that into here. Now if we do like negative 0.5, I want it to go towards us, not towards the center, so positive 0.5. Now it's scrolling towards us. I'm sure you've seen stuff like this before. In fact, maybe I'll try to remake this effect. In Diablo 4, if you use the deep freeze ability, it will have like a frost aura around the ice block in the center, and it most definitely uses polar coordinates or uses a mesh that's laid out funny with the UVs to get this same effect. Let me know if you want to see me try to recreate that effect. I think that would be fun. I eventually do want to get into trying to recreate stuff from other games and break it down. Okay, we love that. Let's go ahead and set that to 0 though, so it's not moving constantly while we're trying to see what's going on. Okay, so now we've got this. We are going to want to be able to control how thick these black values are and how sharp these white values are. So smooth step node, perfect for that, as we learned down here. So let's plug this into the in. And now if I adjust the X, that is going to create more of the kind of black space. And if I adjust this, which I would call the Y, but it's really just two X's, it's two different variables here. This is going to allow us to sharpen up the white. So a balance between these two, we could like bring up more black and then bring down the white to make it nice and sharp if we wanted to, or if we want to leave these kind of wispy edges, we could do it that way too. That looks about right to me. We'll add controls on all these so we can control it once we are actually looking at it in game. So let's take a look at how this looks in the scene view already so you can kind of see what we're going for. Let's plug this into our color node just so we can see, and we'll go ahead and set this speed just so we can see it moving around. Hit save, go to your scene view, right click, create, material, I don't know, polar chords. Plop it onto our plane. Go up here, go to shader graph, and polar chords 2 is the one I just made. So now you see, if I were to turn on the back face here, now you can see what I'm talking about. And we can tell it to force the depth right, and sure, we could turn on alpha clipping too. That just makes it super clean. I don't know why, with like sorting with itself. Maybe. What else did I not do? Force enabled back. Transparent. That would probably help. No? What is going on? See how it's like... Well, I can't actually tell if it's having issues sorting. Okay, it is. Look at it. Why is it doing that? Oh, because I hit back instead of both. Doi. Okay, so now you can see both. But honestly, we would probably only need the back face for this effect. Because we're going to be in here. We're going to be in here like this, which is why, let's go ahead and rotate this to where it's facing the Z. Okay. Which is why we place the pivot like we did, so that we can give ourselves more of a runway here. Can increase the size overall. So we can give ourselves a lot more of a runway here, so when we are inside of this, we can look left, we can look right. Oh man, how cool is that? Being in hyperspace. So if you wanted to like look left and show a ship here or something, and that being the direction it's heading. I think like I don't know if Destiny does that. I haven't played Destiny, but I swear I've seen a clip of like your ship in hyperspace moving along as like a loading screen. Or if you want to do a cutscene with this kind of effect, it would look really cool. And we're going to make it look a lot cooler. So let's jump back into our shader. Now I know for sure I'm going to want some colors here. So let's grab a lerp node. Now we know a lerp lets us pick something for the white values and something for the black values. I forget which is which. I believe the top is the white. Yeah. No, top is black. Okay, top is the black value. Bottom is the white value. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Plug this into the time. Now, if we take two colors, create a color node, set to HDR so we can make it nice and bright. Let's make it something really obvious from the get-go. And so if I replace this, this should change the black to be red. Oh, that's the white. I am such a clown. Sure, why not? That can be our, yeah, that'll be our white value. And we'll switch this one to be blue. I like to use red and blue just because it's very clear. And now we can control each color individually. For some reason, if you do this with a remap node instead of a smooth step, the colors get all janky. I don't know why. Use a smooth step instead. So now if we plug this into our colors, hit save, go back to our scene view. Now we got the different colors. Great. So let's go ahead and make these properties. Name this white value. Name this. Oops, set that as the main color by accident. Oops. Rename. I do that all the time. Black value. And let's create some more controls here. Create a float. Copy that. That'll be our starting point. Convert that to a property. We'll call this edge1. And create another float. Copy that. Plug it in. Edge2. Just so we can change this stuff on the fly, because you always want to be adjusting stuff in your scene. Scale, I don't think we really have to worry about, but just in case, we'll make that a value 2. Name that noise scale. And we definitely want to be able to control the tiling. We can just convert this whole vector to. Name it tiling. And convert that to a property and name it scroll speed. I think that's everything important turned into variables. Oh, forgot to plug that into that. That would have looked funky. Okay, cool. Yes. All right, so let's get in here and let's mess with these values and see if we can create something cool. Okay, so the black value I want. Actually, I don't know which is which anymore. Okay, so the red is the white. So I want this to be a nice bright thing, so increase the intensity. Let's adjust these edges already because I'm already getting way too much white. Okay, here we go. Okay, so edge 1 is what's controlling how sharp my blue color there is. And then this is going to control kind of how much of it is going on. We can mess with the tiling if we want to add some more. This also would be really good for like impact frames and stuff like that if you projected this like behind a character or something. Actually, I don't like how sharp these are. I want to give them a little bit more softness. Let's bring down this color. Yeah, just like a tiny bit blue, like you're moving through space. And yeah, let's bring up the brightness there, make it a little more glowy. I feel like this is going to come down to just like personal preference here, because like that looks kind of cool too, but I also like it kind of thick looking. So I think I'm going to go with that. Or if you want it to be more wispy and like ethereal looking, or if you want it to be like sharp and stylized, I kind of like that. Could decrease our scale here too if we wanted. Nah, I liked our scale at 25. Okay. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. Just mess with the values till you're pleased with how they look. Yeah, a little bit brighter. Okay, remember we can look left and right and all that. Very cool. Okay, so I think now I want to add a little bit of extra depth to this. Oh, we can also adjust our... Oh yeah, that's what I want. I was going a little too sharp on my lines there. We want something more like that. So adjust your X tiling to where it's not just like straight lines flying at you. Give yourself a little bit more of a breakup in those lines. Yes, that looks great. Mess with my edges a little bit more and make them nice and bright. Okay, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Very good. It's got a very Star Wars vibe to it with its hyperspace, which I love. So I want to add some more cool stuff. So let's grab all this, all of our polar coordinate noise stuff. We'll grab the time stuff too. I'm not going to grab any of the exposed variables because those are going to be probably different. Let's hit Control C, Control V, move this stuff up here out of the way. And of course the variables are plugged in anyway. Okay, so we're going to need to remove the tiling connection here. Okay. Remove the speed connection. It's spiraling out of control. And this offset connection's fine. Okay, I think we are all good. Okay, let's get a new tiling vector for this. Just set it to 1 for now. Plug that in. Let's get a new vector 2 for this so it stops spinning around wildly. Okay, now for this, let's slap a smooth step on the end just like we did before. So we can break it up as much as we want. We'll add controls for that. Yeah, we can keep that tiling about there. Let's make it nice and circular. Yeah, maybe 0.4 is a good value there. I want these to be circles. All right, just kind of like how we started with. And let's adjust these to where these are like nice defined circles here. Not too far. It's a delicate dance here, getting this to do exactly what you want, balancing between these things. Okay, that is pretty sweet. I think that's going to look good. We can always adjust this later. Let's add controls here. Just like we did before. Name this one Circles Edge 1. And create another float, copy, paste, plug that in, right click, convert, property, circles, edge 2. Okay. Uh-oh, you can see a little bit of the seam there, but nobody's going to notice that at all. Promise. Yeah, we'll just do one color for this. So if we just multiply this by a color, it's just going to grab the white value and give us a place to put the color just on the white. I'll keep that HDR white for now. Convert that to a property. Rename it circle color. And do a property for this. Why not? We might want to adjust it. Circles, tiling. And we're going to want to control the speed here. Circle. Scroll. Okay. Now, this is going to be super simple. We are just going to add this to this, okay? Since I know that what I'm adding here is just going to be a bright color, I can just add it on top and it'll look fine. But if you wanted to add like a dark color for whatever reason, adding it together like this wouldn't work. Making it darker when you add it together just like removes it from the equation, which I'll show you. So let's just add these two together and replace the base color. Hit save, and let's go mess around with this. Okay, so now you kind of see what I'm going for here. If we adjust this speed to be 0.5, oop, I want this to be negative apparently. So now we got some extra detail, some fog coming in. But you'll see if I make this dark, it just vanishes completely, and that's because we added it together. Now I'm not sure. Maybe I do want this to be kind of like darker, but I kind of like it a little brighter too. I don't know. That's pretty cool, but I don't want to assault your eyes too much looking at it. So maybe like, yeah, just a little bit of extra detail in there. But I don't think it's quite moving fast enough. Let's see if -1. Oh yeah, now I feel like I'm moving through hyperspace. And that just gives it an extra layer where it's not just the lines. Honestly, I think our edges and everything are good on that too. Yeah, that looks sweet. Okay, let's add one more detail here, which is totally unnecessary if you don't want to, but I kind of like this because I think they do this in Star Wars. Let's create a particle system attached to this and do what we always do. Set that to 1, lifetime 1, speed 0, emission 1, shape, change it to a sphere with a low radius so it always spawns at the same spot. Create a new material. Call this center. And that's fine. We can just use the default here. And we can plug in a default particle. Change the smoothness to nothing. I guess metallic is fine. Let's change it to transparent. And we want to turn on emission here. This is just a default Unity shader. I didn't make this. And this is where we're going to control the brightness. So let's replace this particle systems material with that. And let's see if we scoot it on the Z in some direction. I might be able to see it. Where is it at? Okay. We want this to be like all the way at the end. What you're going to want to do is definitely change max particle size to 1. This tells the particle system how big this particle is allowed to be compared to your screen size. So 0.5 means that it can be half the size of your screen before it starts to like deform and get smaller and try to like remain that same size. I just do 1 just so it's not messing up as I'm trying to work with it. Let's switch. I press W to switch between the gizmos here to the transform. Oh, we can also sort this higher, so it always stays. So if we sort this at 6, we can sort this at 5, so that this particle always stays above no matter what. Let's set this towards the end of our tunnel here, and we can adjust the size once we get in. Yeah. Okay, let's like bring the size down to like 0.3. Yeah, see, now we got this little point at the end. Click on the material. Let's change the emission color to something more like a blue. Nice bright blue. And if we go back into our particle system, I want this to kind of stagger a little bit, so I'm going to turn on size over lifetime. I'm going to do my up-down curve, but I don't want it to stagger that much, so I'm just going to add an extra particle that gets emitted. So it's 2 per second, so one is halfway shrunken down when the next one is added, so it like kind of adds this bounce effect. Press Q to get rid of your gizmo so you can see what you're doing. And yeah, that looks about right, but we can get a little more fine-tuning here. If we go down to the renderer and change this to facing and adjust the pivot, if we adjust the Z pivot, this will move it closer to our camera / screen. So instead of adjusting the size, we can just like bias it towards the camera some more. And I think that's a little bit too much bounce, so I'm going to add an extra particle here. Yeah. Yes, this is looking great. Yeah, I love this. Okay, I think that about wraps it up, man. This looks awesome. So let's, and as you can see, you can get different angles here. Probably have to be a little farther away from that particle, or push the particle back a little further. If you wanted to get a better angle, oop, not that way. Not that way. Yeah, here we go. So we can get better angle here. If you had a ship flying through hyperspace and you wanted to do a cool perspective shot. Okay. Yes, this is awesome. I'm going to bias this towards the camera a wee bit more. Okay. Now what we can do, this is just a fun trick. If you click on your camera, not sure if I've shown you how to do this yet, click on your camera and hold Control, Shift, and then press F. That frames your camera, and this works for any object. It'll move your camera to that exact space that you're looking at. So now if you go to your game view, you can see what it looks like in your game window. So I think that wraps it up. Looks awesome. Big fan. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was super fun to make. This is something I've actually always wanted to make, but never got around to, and now I get to make a little tutorial out of it so you guys can learn too. So if you enjoyed, like, do the YouTube stuff, tell your grandma, tell your dad, tell your mom to watch these videos so they can learn how to do cool VFX, get a job as a VFX artist. I'm going to drop this stuff on my Patreon, which I believe is it's only one tier. It's $5 a month. You get access to the project files. Use this stuff if you want. Just don't break it apart and sell the assets separately or anything. That would be weird. Don't be a weirdo. But if you want to use this kind of stuff in this project in your own game, that's cool with me. I will link the Patreon in the bio. That would help me out. It takes forever to get this stuff monetized on YouTube, so I can actually put a little bit extra in my pockets for putting all this information out there, which would be great, but it takes forever to get that stuff going, and I'm not paid for any of these videos yet, so I would appreciate a Patreon tier sub. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you next time.